I am mystified. I looked at his poll ratings. They're in the around 40, 42, although the Rasmussen Daily Report had him up to 47. I don't know quite what's going on, but if you look at the last 13 months and you look at what he said he was going to do or implied he was going to do, he said he was going to get the economy booming. We've gone from an average of 4-year average per year of 5.2% down to 2.4%, I think the latest. The GDP in the fourth quarter was estimated at 5.4%. Maybe that'll be adjusted. If you look at the unemployment rate, it's still pretty much, it hasn't gotten worse, even though you were cutting a lot of federal jobs. He's cut 300,000 federal jobs. And then more importantly, we've increased energy production. We've deregulated. We're it's going to boom. If you look at crime, the murder rate's the lowest it's been. I don't know if that's correct, but the administration says 100 years, maybe 30 or 40 years, but maybe it's right. And then in addition to that, there is no illegal immigration, new illegal. It's sealed. They said that you had to have comprehensive immigration reform. You didn't. Nobody thought if I'd said 2 years ago, hey, everybody, vote for Trump, there won't be more than 100 illegal aliens a month come through. They thought you were crazy. And now he's deported 500,000 criminals, which has really affected the crime rate as well. And then you look at abroad, he inherited 2 wars, one in the Middle East and one in Ukraine. The one in the Middle East is quiet. I mean, it's not resolved yet with Hamas. He inherited an Iran that people on the left said you can't stop them. They're 60 days away from getting a bomb. They're not going to get a bomb. It's a question whether they're going to survive. He is dealing with the Ukraine war. Biden never did a thing with the Ukrainian war. All he said was, as long as it takes. Well, we're at 5 years, Joe. What's the next step? So he's got a great foreign policy. He got rid of Maduro. Everybody said you can't get rid of Maduro. That's a problem. He cut off Russian oil and Chinese oil shipments from Venezuela. It's really a good record, but he's not getting credit. So then the question is why? And the why has to be couched in traditionally, does Trump ever poll 52 or 3? Not with that media and not with that hysterical left. I mean, they detest Donald Trump. They hate everything about him. And that, it's not just Rosie O'Donnell or, Stephen Colbert. It's all of them hate him, not just Hillary or everybody. And then you have this legacy media that has all of the network news. I know everybody said, well, Victor, we're in the world of podcast, and they still have the dominant voice. All of the corporate boardroom, academia, the traditional and news, so all of them, the big money. So it's very hard for him to poll well. But then I think part of the problem is they have what I would call cul-de-sacs, dead ends. So just when they start to get on message, somebody knows how to goad Trump or something happens. I'll give you a couple of examples. He doesn't really need to go after Bill Maher. He got very angry at Bill Maher and said he was a talentless, low rating. And he had invited him to Trump's idea is like a traditional, what they call in Greece, xenia. You invite somebody over to your house for dinner, and then you have cordial relations in public. So Bill Maher comes over to Trump, he gets trashed by everybody, and he feels like he has to attack Trump. And then Trump said, you ungrateful. And that took a day. And when Rob Reiner died, he said something that was on tour. That took a day. And when the Obama, I know we've talked about the Obama primate meme, and that was probably not, he saw this funny thing with Lion King and all these different politicians, and Joe Biden had a primate body. But I don't know if he even saw that. He just said it, and that was kind of that's what the argument was. But that took a day or two. And those days or two are numbered. So you got to stay on economy, 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 foreign policy, crime down, crime down, crime down, border secure, border secure. And then when the left does its no kings or starts to firebomb Tesla, you got to play rope-a-dope with them. You got to find a way to make them look ridiculous. And they really do need to just quietly stay in the purple and red states and keep deporting as many criminals as possible, make them safer, and then just say, we'd love to go into Michigan, we'd love to go in Minnesota. These were our fellow Americans suffering under these high crime, but these are renegade insurrectionist Jefferson Davis-like places. And until they come to their senses, I'm not going to expose our hard-working ICE agents. A great majority are Mexican-American, my fellow Mexican-American and poor people who are trying to help us, and they have the most dangerous job from affluent left-wing elites who gratuitously attack them with the support of Democratic officials. Just get that narrative out, and he can still win, and he can outraise them. I think they're already have twice as much money as the Democrats, and nobody wants to vote for open borders and high crime, and then you can also, those other issues don't help them. The trans issue and men and women's sports doesn't help them. If they just did a commercial and they just said, do you really want to go back? And then there was Mayorkas on a podium saying the border is secure, and then show 10,000 people swarming it. Or one of those drag shows in a library with little kids. Or
the Algerian male
beating the heck out of that Italian girl boxer. Yeah, that was disgusting. And put that in. And then show some of the illegal aliens ramming ICE cars. And then show gruesome scenes from wars over. And these are what happens when you do not have deterrence. And when you let the Houthis and Hamas and you back down from, you have something like the Afghan pullout, you destroy deterrence, and these are the people who get killed. They would win. They need to get a tough, take no prisoners campaign group that know how to do commercials, like the tank commercial.
Well, it sounds to me like you will be happy if Donald Trump does a State of the Union, much like last year. I mean, he really pounded everything.
It was long, but he was right. He enumerated, he needs to go, I'm going to tell you things that you never believed would happen. Here it is. Bam, bam, bam. And then he needs to play rope-a-dope with the left. They want him to have head-to-head fights, and then they're going to just attack him and distract him. And he has to kind of lure them in and then let them punch themselves out or something, because in his State of the Union, he said, I wanted to help our liberal cities. They are Americans. I love our liberal cities. I was feeling so terrible. It's true, too, that they were plagued by these high crimes. I knew that if I went in there, I would get no credit, but I didn't care. I just wanted to help Americans. So we went in there, and guess what? Here's a crime rate in Washington, D.C. now. Here's 4,000 criminals that I took out, and they don't like that. Maybe you guys can explain it. I can't. I want to go into California, Gavin. I appeal to you tonight. You have 30,000 criminals that are illegal aliens. Please don't let them out on the poor and the defenseless in California. And then when you look at Trump has invited in supposedly $10 trillion in foreign investment. Then he rounds up all of these guys that used to not like him in Silicon Valley and spent hundreds of millions of dollars to defeat him. And you look at what they have promised, the Ken Andreessens, the Ben Horowitzes, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Jeff Bezos, they're all investing. And so he's kind of unleashed the floodgates, but we're not really seeing that yet because he just started to do it. And I think it's going to be something like World War II when, 42, 43, we were really starting to gear up, but we weren't really out producing the Axis yet. But by 1945, we had a larger GDP than Germany, Italy, Japan, but also larger than our own allies, the British,
Empire and the Russians all put together. And that was, once you start that ball rolling, it's getting up the hill. And I think he's almost at the summit. And then I would expect next year the foreign investment, the energy leases, the deregulation, and the courting of all of these, I don't know what you would call them, the Henry Fords of our age, the Thomas Edisons, the Henry Kaisers, the William Knudsen's. He's telling them, I will protect you from European regulation and censorship, but you just have to do one thing. Make money, don't outsource, keep it here, and you're going to have a whole new environment that you've never had before. And I think they're pretty excited about that. I think as he's trying to substitute class, middle class interest for race, and he's basically telling the Latino truck driver, the black carpenter, the white manufacturer guy on the assembly line, I'm going to make you all prosperous and you're going to have more in common with each other based on your shared interest as a powerful middle class, an American productive class, than you do differences because of your superficial appearances. And that's what's really frightened the left, because he got record numbers of Hispanic males and black males. And never any Republican had done that. And it was this idea that we're going to make you all rich in the middle, not rich, but prosperous, and you're going to have a lot of things in common, and your superficial appearance will be rendered irrelevant because we're going to get you the ability to buy cars and houses and good jobs. And I think it's a very nationalist, patriotic message that's inclusive. I was surprised, but I think he's trying to say, let no one say I didn't give Putin a chance. I bent over backwards. I wasn't his poodle or asset. I was trying to give him a chance to get out of a disaster that he created. But the problem is that Ukraine doesn't have the area, the population, or the GDP, nor do the Europeans, to go back and take all this in a really bloody offensive. They tried that in 2023, and it was a disaster. So what they can do is what they're doing now is very slowly creating defensive lines and bleeding out the Russians. And they're doing a very good job. But if they were to go on the offensive in this war of drones and obstacles, I don't think it would work, and they don't have the manpower to do it. I'd much rather see them, just hold fast and wear out Putin. Let him be the offensive where all the casualties. There's a magic line, Larry, somewhere where there will be a DMZ, and we don't know where that is, but it's somewhere close now, where Putin will go back to the oligarchs and the military class and said, I got 100 miles, 50 miles, 80 miles, 110 of additional territory from where I started, and therefore it was worth 1.5 million Russian dead, missing, and captured. And he doesn't think he's there yet. I think he's not there yet because this was a colossal blunder on his part, and there's a lot of people angry about him. So he thinks he's basically telling us, I don't have enough territory yet to justify my mistake, and I'm going to get it. And so I think all Ukraine should do is rally NATO and arm themselves to the teeth and bleed Russia away. It's like World War I. Passchendaele, the Somme, all of these Verdun, all of these offensives never worked until the Americans came in with 2 million people and overwhelmed the Germans, or they started to use tanks. But barring a technological breakthrough or a huge input of NATO manpower, and I don't see any of that happening, I would think that Ukraine would bleed itself white if it tried to have a massive offensive, and Russia would welcome that. There's still oil and gas on the European Western continent. There's gas in France, there's still oil in the North Sea. There's still retrievable oil and gas if they'll just go after it. And they can go. They canceled the East Med pipeline. Israel, Cyprus, Greece, they were all ready to bring in natural gas right into Southern Europe, and Biden, of course, and the Euros canceled it. But they just need the willpower, and I think Trump is trying to, jawbone them into doing that. But it'll take a while. But you can't feed the enemy, is what Trump is saying.
First question is it legal or not? Yes, it is legal. They have the right to redistrict this year. Number two, is gerrymandering confined to Texas or Republicans? No, all states do it. Number three, who's better at it, the Democrats or the Republicans? The Democrats are far better at it. If you take Illinois, where they fled to, Trump got about 45% of the vote. I think they have 3 out of, 20? 17 to 3. So they're underrepresented by 4 times. If you look at Massachusetts, where Trump got 40% of the vote, you would think that they would have 2 or 3. They have none. Here in California, of the 53, I think we have 11 or 12. So we have about 20% of the House seats. Donald Trump got about 41%. So they're very good at it. So why are they angry and fleeing? They did this with Scott Walker, remember, about unionization, making unionization dues not mandatory. They all fled out of state. They always do this like adolescents. What we're watching is an adolescent meltdown. And I shouldn't say adolescent, that's not fair at all. It's a terrible twos. They had 3 children, and I remember once when I said to one of my children in the store, you know, everybody's gone through this, you're not going to get Pop-Tarts. They were actually 4 or 5. They laid on their back and kicked up in the air. I want my Pop-Tart. Well, that's what they are. I mean, there's Cory Booker is screaming and yelling like Spartacus again for no reason. There's Hakeem Jeffries with his little club. Now they're hitting watermelons and smashing watermelons. This is our contract for America. We want to do this on the border on transgender because they're not doing it because nobody wants what they have. So they're just a one-trick pony. Trump is Hitler, 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 tyranny. Could I say something, Democrats? Tyranny, you say? This is tyranny. This is dictatorship. When you weaponize in one day, on November 18th, 2022, and you appoint a special counsel to go after Donald Trump for having 102 so-called classified documents out of 13 or 14,000 in his home, and you sick the FBI on him, and Jack Smith was appointed that day to investigate that, the same day Nathan Wade is charging the White House, $200 an hour to meet with the White House counsel. Can I ask you Democrats a question? I listened to Nathan Wade. He didn't come across as a legal eagle. So why would you get this guy from an obscure Fulton County investigation and bring him into the White House the same day you appoint Jack Smith, the special prosecutor? Oh, I forgot. And why would the third-ranking Attorney General in Merrick Garland's DOJ, and that's a very important position. You get judicial appointments when you get that. Why would he come from Alvin Bragg, Manhattan suit, into the DOJ, and then he would leave again